It's time for the Rose Chat Podcast, a podcast dedicated to celebrating the world's most beloved flower, the rose. Join award-winning gardeners Chris VanCleave and Teresa Byington as they chat with rose lovers and experts from around the globe. With each episode, you'll gain valuable knowledge and insights to achieve the rose garden you've always dreamed of. Listen now as we explore the world of roses.
Hey friends, today we're chatting about two garden troublemakers, crown gall and chili thrips. Yuck. This falls under the category of things we wish we didn't need to know. Now, I don't deal with chili thrips, but since I had a very sad experience with gall, I do want to know all that I can. So fortunately, Gay Hammond is here to do a deep dive into these very unwelcome garden visitors. And when Gay does a deep dive, she does a deep dive. This will be a good time to take notes. Hey, Gay, welcome to Rose Chat.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Oh, it's so great to have you. Now, Gay, we're going to get into the critters and the crud, but first, let's talk about today's roses.
Well, the good thing about the industry now is that roses that are coming to market are a lot more hardy and resilient than the ones that came to market, say, 15 years ago. And that's because the hybridizers or the breeders have worked real hard to breed disease resistance into new varieties. And the result is roses that are either tolerant or resistant to certain fungal diseases and pests. And that what roses are resistant to, whether it's pest or fungus, differs from one region of the country to the next. And so we commend them for doing such a great job to give us roses that provide above average performance in specific regions of the country. But we seem to have a problem with the CRUD, one particular CRUD called crown gall, and a critter called chili thrips that are showing up more and more often around the country. So that's why we chose to talk about those two things today.
Well, I'm on several little groups on Facebook that rose related, and so I cannot believe how often people are showing pictures of gall or talking about gall or asking, is this gall? And I had gall a few years ago, and I mean, it really is something I just never heard of much before.
Me and you. In fact, I can remember back in the 2010, 2015, you didn't ever hear those words.
Mm-mm.
And when it first started showing up in Houston, I went to a friend of mine who is a third generation rose grower, and I said, why is this stuff showing up in Texas? And he said, Gay, it's showing up all over the country.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, why is that? Has it not been here for 20 years? And all of a sudden it's here. And he said, because certain states that are prominent growers of field grown roses outlawed the process
Oh,
of sterilizing agricultural soil.
oh
And,
my.
and that's where the crown gall bacteria lives. It is most often found in agricultural operations in the soil. And you know, when you and I think of fungus or crud, we think, oh well, we'll get something off the shelf and we'll spray it for a couple of weeks and it'll be okay. That's not the case with crown gall. That bacteria can live in sandy soil without a plant host for decades.
Oh my goodness.
So it's not going to go away unless you do something. And what most people don't realize is it can be going on and us not even know it. What it does is creates what we would consider a woody tumor, and it's going to look just like what you're thinking a tumor would look like, but it forms on the roots and on the canes at the bottom of the plant, and sometimes around the bud union. And it can show up on any kind of woody ornamental, roses, trees, berries, some woody ornamental plants, even vegetables can show signs of crown gall. And the bad thing is those plants can live for decades if they survive that long, infected, and those infected plants will become a distribution site for more bacteria formation that infects more woody plants and ends up with soil contamination if somebody doesn't do something. And I know this from experience. I have a home site in the country in Texas, and it has what my husband would call the old home place that's 150 years old, and there is a stand of crepe myrtles, and one of those crepe myrtle trees, and the bottom diameter of these trees is 10 foot wide. One of these main canes coming off out of the ground has crown gall.
Mm.
And the crown gall is 6 inches completely wider than the cane of the tree, or the limb of the tree. So the difference in it is from the size of the crown, from the ring of the crown gall to the cane above, or the limb above it, there is a 10-inch difference in size.
Oh my God.
And I cut it off when I saw it. Of course, it's too late. It's contaminated the soil where those trees are. And we ended up taking out 300-year-old crepe myrtle trees because that one infected the whole area around the trees.
Oh my word. Now I started growing dahlias along with my roses a few years ago. And now I'm hearing about dahlia leafy gall. Is this like the same kind of thing?
Well, I've never seen that, but there are a whole lot of CRUDs or pest created problems with plants that have the word gall in them,
Mm-hmm.
like leaf gall, which is
Mm-hmm.
a little round ball that ends up on the underneath side of oak tree leaves.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes
Oh yeah.
those are caused by what's called a gall wasp. It stings the plant, it makes a ball. And then you've got things like aerial burr knots, which are round woody growths, usually on fruit trees. Apples and
Mm-hmm.
cherries are a big one to get them. That is looks like gall, but it's not. And those kinds of things. Oh, and the other one that I see a lot of and people report is where there's been pruning on live oak trees,
Mm-hmm.
and the scar that is left is round, and people think that's gall, but that's not. It's just a woody scar.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's hard sometimes for people to distinguish because they think woody and round and looks like a tumor. And there's a lot of things that do that, but they're not crown gall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it's gross too.
That's true. It's gross.
Yeah. So now how do plants get it?
It's caused by a bacteria in the soil, and a healthy plant that is not wounded will not get crown gall. But the minute that plant gets a wound in contaminated soil, the plant sends out a distress signal. I'm hurt.
Mm-hmm.
I got hit with the weed eater. I got hit by the leaf trimmer. My mama cut me in the wrong place with the clippers.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that creates a wound, and that plant is in wounded soil, usually these wounds are at the base of the plant, that distress signal attracts the bacteria just like metal fragments are attracted to a magnet.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as that wound is 24 hours old or less, then the bacteria will enter the wound because it can get in. It's not scabbed over. And once it's in, that bacteria attacks healthy plant cells, and that's how where the gall forms. And it's formed because there is an influx of hormones that create that tumor formation.
Mm-hmm.
And
Now,
off to the races.
I'm wondering if that's what happened to my big rambler, because I bought it as a small plant. It was just Felagone, and I bought it as a small plant and kept it in one space. And then I thought, oh, you'll look so pretty growing over the potting shed, and she did for a couple of years. And so I dug it as a little bit bigger plant, and I'm wondering now if it was wounded in that, transplanting it, that process.
That,
So she
that
did great for a couple of years. She did extra great. And then that third year, just the failure to thrive.
yeah, that's generally what we see is over time the plant gets less and less vigorous because as the gall grows, it starts strangling whatever it's growing on, and the plant, that part of the plant can't get the right amount of nutrients and water to sustain it because the gall is sucking it all away.
Mercy. So I've heard lots of things, but let's talk about what this does to the soil.
Well, as the galls grow, and I call this the pylon effect. It starts off as a round woody knot, and then that knot cracks open, and more bacteria falls out. Now you've got a secondary tumor that piles on the first one, and it's just ball after ball after ball after ball, and then they all grow together. And what they do to the soil is as they crack, that bacteria, which is right at the surface of the tumor formation, spills out, gets on the ground, and then it lays there until it's called on to wound a plant or to infect the plant, or the soil is sterilized.
Mm.
And sterilization is the only way it will effectively kill the bacteria in the ground.
And
And
how would a home gardener sterilize soil?
well, I've done that here in Houston. We had a lady that had a bunch of tree roses up her sidewalk, and they kept getting gall. And the professional landscape company would buy trees from another place, and they'd get gall. And what was going on is the gall had been growing long enough that it contaminated the entire bed
Mm.
on both sides of the sidewalk. And so it's kind of like creating compost. You take out the plant material, you take away the mulch, you moisten the soil, and usually this is done in the summer, and then you cover it with black plastic on a
Oh,
sunny day when it's 100 degrees. And the soil gets to a certain temperature that kills the gall.
wow. Now, I didn't know to do that. What we did is we dug out all the roots, and I found it right at the soil level. It was pretty good size when I found it right at soil level. And I dug out the plant. It was a huge plant. We had to, cut it painstakingly off the potting shed. And and we dug out a ton of the dirt, all that we could, and still have a garden. And then we just replaced it. And the first year we didn't do anything. Last year I planted a clematis, and it's doing fine for now. I don't know if it would be affected by contamination or not, but no roses have gone back in there. But man, I didn't know about the black plastic. We could have done that.
Yeah. Well, and that works for small areas. It doesn't work well in places where a whole landscape has to be taken care of. But hopefully homeowners that encounter gall will recognize it early enough that it can be managed at a small level and not affect their entire landscape.
Hmm. Yeah, and we I was sure to disinfect all the tools that we were using and that kind of thing. So I
Okay,
hope we did enough.
that is critical, because if you don't uh, sterilize your cutting equipment, you could just be infecting other healthy plants next time you cut on them with shears that have the crown gall bacteria on them.
Goodness. Oh, how disappointing it was. I think I sent you pictures of the potting
You did.
shed. It was glorious. But, of course, Mr. G found the silver lining. He thought, well, I've been wondering how I was going to paint the potting shed, and it needs a good coat of paint. So down comes the rose, and he quickly paints. So all's well that ends well. And we
You know,
planted just laying in a couple of other areas. So she's now scampering up some other trellises and things.
well, you made lemonade out of lemons.
We tried. So, but you, in your notes, you said something about if it wasn't very big, you might be able to remove it and not necessarily have to destroy the plant. Did I read that right?
Yes, if there is a light infection going on,
Mm-hmm.
and a light infection in my mind would be um, there is a ball that is on at the base of the plant, not down in the roots, but up on the cane itself,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just one. You could cut that cane off and destroy the stem where the crown gall occurred, and then disinfect your shears, and then watch that plant to see if it reoccurs somewhere else. And then if it did, then to remove and destroy the plant. If there is a heavy infection, and let me describe where I see these heavy infections that the light treatment doesn't work, especially with ground cover roses that are low to the ground. You don't have a whole lot of opportunity to get down there at ground level and look and see what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of times I find crown gall that started off in the root system, and so it's underground, and you don't realize that what it is until the gall grows so big it starts coming up above ground, and then you dig up the plant and look, and it is just a huge ball of woody tumor mass.
Wow.
Well, in that case, you have to destroy the plant, because there's no saving it when it gets, especially on the root system, because it's going to have been there so long by the time you finally find it that it's not easily remediated at that level.
Mm-hmm. Well, what about when we're shopping and we're bringing new plants? I get plants from all over. I should
Well,
probably be looking a lot more carefully than I am.
you should be looking, because now that we know that crown gall can be in the chain of commerce, we need to be extra judicious when we buy new plants, any woody plant, not just roses, to look at the close to the bottom of the plant to see, is there any unusual swellings or galling anywhere on the down close to the ground level? Do we see any what might look like covered up eggs,
Mm-hmm.
soil where it's down there and just somebody's thrown dirt on top of it so you wouldn't see it? Not that anybody would do that.
Mm-hmm.
Want to avoid wounding plants when we put them in the ground. Be careful not to cut the stems or do anything that would damage the plant, in case we have had, especially if we've had crown gall in our landscape before. And one of the things that I do, because my yard gets managed by a gentleman who has his heart in the right place, but he doesn't know much about plants. And so and he loves the weed eater. So I wrap my roses that are substantial, that get stuff underneath them. I wrap them with tree wrap,
Oh.
at the base so that if he gets in the bed with the string trimmer, he's not going to create a wound that then crown gall could attack.
Oh, what a
And then
great idea. What a great idea.
the other thing that we have, especially down here in Texas, is in June, we have a plethora of June bugs come up out of the ground. And a June bug as a baby is a grubworm.
Mm-hmm.
And those chewing insects like grubworms will create the wound that then the crown gall gets to in the soil.
Oh, good grief. Those little ugly things.
So if we can control the grubworms, we can eliminate the possibility of having crown gall get caused from that.
Oh my goodness. So our Japanese beetles are probably creating havoc as well.
If they chew on the stems, they will.
Oh, mercy.
Chew on the buds, maybe not, but if they get to the main canes, they can.
Oh man. So is there anything else we need to know about crown gall?
There is a extensive article that I did for the American Rose magazine on crown gall when it first started showing up in commerce. And if any of your listeners are interested, if you will direct them in my direction, I will send them that article, which will have more tips and tricks about what to look for and what it is and what it isn't, and how to deal with it if you get it.
Well, friends, if you would like that, I'll get in touch with Gay. Just email me at rosechatpodcast@gmail.com. That's great. Thanks, Gay.
You're welcome.
Well,
Now you want
that's CRUD number 1. So
yes.
what about the critter number 2? I know little to nothing about chili thrips. All I know about chili thrips is that I saw something weird that I thought was rose rosette on my daughter's roses in California, but found out, oh no, that's just chili thrips.
That's true. Well, I have the distinction of finding the largest population of chili thrips in the United States. So I know a little bit about chili thrips.
Man.
And they are, in my opinion, the devil's spawn. They are different from every other rose pest. And I didn't think you could kill a knockout rose up to 2005. And a friend of mine that is in extension in Florida, we were talking one day, and he mentioned that he's got a stand of knockout roses and they're dying. And I said, that's just not possible. He said, Gay, it is. There's this new thing out there. It's called chili thrips. And it's killing these knockout roses. I said, I don't believe you. Send me pictures. Well, sure enough, they were. And that started my learning more about chili thrips. And about 3 months into it, I got a call from the medical center in Houston, Texas, and said, we got something bad wrong with our roses. We need you to come look at it. And darned if it wasn't exactly the same symptoms.
Oh my, I've just thought, I'm going to interrupt you just a minute, go down memory lane. I think when I met you, it was at Tenarchy, and you were speaking on chili thrips.
That's right. And the scary thing about chili thrips is it was imported to the United States. It's not been here naturally.
Mm.
And because it lives inside the plant, it makes it through customs, because plants come to customs without leaves. And so it's very hard for customs inspectors to identify it. That's how it got in the country, in a bunch of contaminated pepper plants from South America. And because it's a hot weather pest, it just loves certain states like Texas, Florida, Louisiana. And the bad thing about chili thrips is most pesticides that are on store shelves do not work on them.
Oh dear.
even though the label may say thrips or chili thrips, does not necessarily mean that product works on chili thrips. And I know this because the University of Florida and Texas A&M studied what was effective on chili thrips. And what I learned from that was that, sure, a specific product may work, but it takes 25 applications over 25 weeks. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm not going to let something eat on my plants for 25 weeks in hopes that at the end of that, the bug's going to die.
Yeah. Oh, Mom.
I need it to work in 2 or less. And so you have to be real careful about what you choose to use if you get them. Because if you use the wrong product, you're just allowing the population to double every 10 days.
Oh my goodness.
And if you wonder how many that is, they don't have words to describe the number. It is way above the gazillion.
And you don't see these.
No, you don't see them.
Oh my gosh.
If people say, I see it, I say, well, why do you think it's that? Because I see them. No, it's not that. Because no adult human can see these things. They are so small.
No, that's cruel. You can't even watch them die or anything.
Nope. And you have to go, when you treat the plants, you have to go by the symptoms to know whether or not you got the bug. Unless you have a jeweler's loupe or, some kind of scientific apparatus, a microscope that you can put them under and look. But you're not going to see them.
So we don't have them here because we get cold. Although I guess we could get them.
You couldn't get them,
but they would be killed in the winter.
I have seen them as far north as New York, but they were in the northern states. They don't overwinter because the temperatures get too low for them, but they can get imported in. We can buy them in the nurseries. We can introduce our plants at home to chili thrips that can then be eaten on for a whole growing season until the population gets killed off in the winter. But down in the South, states like Texas and Louisiana and Florida, we can get as many as 18 generations of them a year.
Oh my goodness. Well, Gay, you've had a few freaky ice storms and things. Did that change your population?
It did. We had a March event a couple of years ago where it was 19 degrees for 4 days. I got 1 report of chili thrips that entire year.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So I think there is validity in that. Of course, the following year it was 25. And then as the populations of these things increase, you get more and more reports of them. But there is a correlation between the size of the population and the weather conditions.
Now, they're not just roses, are they?
No. In Texas, they breed or host on 130 different plant species.
Yeah, you said it came in on a pepper plant. Yes, I remember that.
And I tell people, if it's pretty and it grows in Texas, it's on the menu for chili thrips.
Oh, shoot. Oh, that's so unfortunate.
It is, but it's true.
Oh, my goodness. So how are you going to manage such a pest?
Well, the challenge with managing it is, first off, nobody knows what it is. And so it's usually misidentified. The number one misidentification is herbicide damage. The next one is chemical burn, because one of the symptoms of chili thrips is it causes black lesions in the leaves, which is consistent with what chemical burn does. A lot of times it's misdiagnosed as spider mite damage, but the spider mite damage normally would be at the bottom of the plant, where with chili thrips, the leaves that look like spider mite damage are going to be at the top of the plant. And then a lot of times it gets misdiagnosed as rose rosette. And so that misdiagnosis prevents us from implementing controls early enough that by the time we figured out we misdiagnosed it, the population has exploded into the zillions and zillions of them. And then it becomes harder to get control.
Wow, that's a lot. That's a lot.
It is a lot. But once you see it, you know it forever. And you know, if I have it, I know that I have to do something in addition to my normal annual maintenance program to keep from them getting a toehold and keep from wintering over if they're living at my neighbor's house 2 doors down and they come to my house to eat, because I have all the new growth on the plants. And so and it's not hard. We just need to be mindful to be on the lookout for it. And if we find it, start immediately to do something about it.
So let's go through the symptoms again. What are we going to see?
Well, you're going to see things that make the plant look alien. And by alien, I mean, a lot of your listeners will recognize the St. Patrick's rose. It's got a 4-inch bloom. It's a hybrid tea with a 4-inch bloom. When it gets infected with chili thrips, the bloom becomes yellow. It looks like a daisy, and it's the size of a piece. And it has 6 or 7 petals. So that's one version of alien. New growth will come one of 2 ways. It will look like an asparagus spear. It'll be completely naked of thorns, prickles, or leaves. And then the bud will be at the top, may or may not have any tiny leaves around it, so it looks like a stem of asparagus. Or it could be like what I call lion's mane growth, where you have a slick stem, and at the top there is a wreath of leaves that are 1/4 of an inch long in a circle around where the bud would be, but it's just leaves. Besides the huge reduction in bloom size, you'll see leaves turning colors and puckering like you run a drawstring through the middle of them. The leaves will be distorted, and a lot of times, and I find this is kind of my signal to an early detection, you'll see leaves that look like black ink has been sprayed on the leaf, or silver ink. That was the first clue to finding chili thrips in the medical center, was a stand of knockout roses looked like someone had walked up with a can of silver spray paint and spray painted the leaves.
Wow, that's freaky.
It was scary when I saw it, because I'd never seen anything like it. But then I got Dr. McKay on the phone, and he said, "Yep, that's chili thrips."
Wow, wow. I don't know how there's so many variants. I don't know how you always know that that's chili thrips. I guess time and time again when you see it, but there's so many ways it can look.
That's why it's always a good idea to send pictures to someone that has experience with chili thrips, because it can be so many different things.
Yes.
And we don't want people to go out there willy-nilly and destroy plants because they think they have something deadly and it's a chili thrip, and we can control that. So before taking action, it's always good. Send me or somebody else that knows about chili thrips pictures, and let's see if we can help identify it. But the one thing that I can tell you that is helpful to controlling this problem is that they don't have very strong mouth parts. And so they feed on new growth. So if you're in my yard, there's not a plant in my yard that doesn't have new growth. But if it's the new growth that the chili thrips are feeding on, and I start seeing chili thrips symptom, I strip off all the new growth, because they don't have strong enough mouth parts to feed on the mature growth. So if you take off all the new growth, they have nothing to eat. And start treating for them. And by everything in your yard, if you've got them on roses, you don't take out just the new growth on the roses. You do it to every plant that has new growth. Otherwise, they say you walk out of the garage with a spray rig in your hand and they're just going to fly over to something else and wait until you go back in the house and then stick their tongue at you and go back to the roses. So you have to treat everything that has new growth. And we should understand that they're going to be at the top of the plant. They're not going to be down at the bottom.
Yeah.
So we want to pay specific attention to the top of the plant when we start with treatment. And especially if we raise dark colored roses like red roses, they're going to be more chili thrips on red roses than there will be on orange, yellows, or whites.
Wow.
I don't know why, but usually we see the highest populations in the summer when there's more to eat. Now, they're going to come in up north or in other states at different times than they do here in Houston. In Texas, the chili thrip season is from May until October. Now, the key to know when to start watching for it is if your state grows Indian hawthorns. Indian hawthorn in Texas is the first plant to have new growth. Almost every CVS or Walgreens pharmacy in Harris County has a stand of Indian hawthorn where there are dead plants, but they're not dead. The chili thrips just ate all the new growth, and they won't put on new growth until next year, so they look dead. And so that's how we know when they're coming in. We start watching Indian hawthorns, we see chili thrips damage, and we know we need to start watching for it in our landscape or treating for it.
So what are you going to treat with?
Well, it is a actual preference. What I do is I will, and this is for anyone that has ever had chili thrips in their landscape. In the winter, I apply a dormant oil spray, and that will kill the immatures and smother the eggs, and lay down a waxy surface that it is then hard for the chili thrips to penetrate. And then I will, once I prune, I start spraying with a product called Monterey horticulture oil, which is a highly refined horticulture product that can be used a lot longer than many other petroleum-based products. And not only have I had good results in avoiding chili thrips with Monterey horticulture spray, it also has helped deter black spot.
Oh.
And then if I actually get chili thrips, which I've only had them one time, is I will then spray with a product that contains spinosad. But there are two other products, and the spinosad product that I use is Conserve. There are two other products that are effective on chili thrips. One is imidacloprid, and there's a lot of products out there that contain that. And one called, I'm going to get this wrong, Dino Tefuran. I don't know what trade name that one is sold under, but those are the three that are recommended by the University of Florida for treating chili thrips in the landscape.
Well, that's good to hear. Now, I want to go back to the Monterey oil for just a second and ask, how hot is too hot to spray that?
Well, I go back to my great friend, Mark Chambly, who owns Chambly's Rose Nursery. When we realized about chili thrips, and he came to Houston to see what they look like at the medical center, because he wanted to make sure he didn't see it up in his nursery. We started testing different products, and he came on a product called Sufoil X, and as he tells me, the homeowner equivalent of that product would be Monterey's horticulture oil. And I was a weenie. I didn't test it to 95 degrees. I stopped at 80. He tested it to 95 and did not see any evidence of chemical burn.
That's great.
Now that's probably the extreme.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think I would recommend anybody do that. But what we learned from his experimentation was that the oil is so highly emulsified that it's like misting hairspray versus smearing mayonnaise. And the Daconil type products would be smeared mayonnaise, and the misting would be the Monterey, because the oil droplets are so fine, and that's the difference in using Monterey's horticulture oil. And I've used it ever since.
You know, someone recommended it to me, and I bought it as a dormant spray. And then, I don't know, we were busy and we didn't get, they got warm too quickly. And then I was afraid to use it. And I certainly could have, because, we're just now getting into those higher temperatures. So, so I could have used it, but I wasn't sure, because I was thinking dormant spray, and they were no longer dormant, but it was still cool enough. I could have used it.
And it's not a dormant spray. A dormant spray are those that are the mayonnaise type products.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Not as emulsified, much thicker, larger petroleum droplets.
Yeah.
That's why you can only use those in the winter.
Yeah. But Monterey is different. Mm-hmm. That's good.
Start on one plant and see what it does before you go treat 200 of them with it, and then go, oh, maybe it was a little too hot.
So is there hope for the home gardener with chili thrips?
Oh, sure. The medical center still has 10,000 roses in it. So
wow.
As long as we know what to do and we take action quickly enough so that we're not having to treat zillions and zillions of them, they can be controlled. And in many cases with Rose Society people here in Houston, I've been able to help them get control when they have gotten chili thrips in a matter of weeks. So it's once you bite the bullet and start taking off symptomatic growth and new growth on every plant in your yard, so there's nothing for them to eat, and they have to move down the street somewhere where there's food, and you get everything under control at one time, you are much better off.
Now, then would you preventatively use the Monterey and that sort of thing, ongoing, even though
I don't. If it's in the season of chili thrips, which would be at my house May to October, and I see them come in and I get control of them and I stop, if they don't come back, I don't worry about it. If I start seeing, the first time I see weird growth or something that looks like chili thrips, I start in doing the same routine. But the one thing I do suggest is, if someone gets it, you want to back off the fertilizer. Because when we increase our level of fertilization, we cause higher levels of chili thrips damage, because there's more to eat. For rose exhibitors, if you push plants to rapidly increase growth, you're rapidly increasing the chili thrip population, because there's more to eat.
Oh, they love that fresh new growth.
They love that fresh new growth because they can bite into it. Science has found that chili thrips population are significantly lower on plants that are not regularly fertilized. So we know that there is a connection between fertilizer and the amount of chili thrip damage we have. So if you see it or it's on your street, then you want to back off your fertilization program and slow down the rate of new growth so that there is less to eat and it's easier for you to get control. Does that
Well,
make sense?
that was a lot, and that was amazing. Is there anything about chili thrips that we missed that we need to mention before we finish up?
No, but I say the same thing about this as I did crown gall. I have a pictorial guide
Okay.
that I put together many years ago that helps people tell what symptom is from chili thrips versus a similar symptom that is caused by something else. So it might help people if they think they have it, go back to the pictures and say, oh, it looks like this versus that, and then they know what to do.
Excellent. Excellent. Always needing more. We're always needing more, and you're going to have that for us. Friends, again, just email me at rosechatpodcast@gmail.com. Gay, this has been amazing. I have learned a ton.
Well, I'm glad, and I appreciate the opportunity to share what little I know with your listeners, and I love being on your program, so call on me anytime.
Friends, there's several other Rose Chats with Gay, and she's so thorough that I know you don't want to miss them. There was one on potting soil called What's in the Bag? There was one on rose pruning where she talked about making order out of chaos. And then there's my personal favorite, and I know there's others I can't think of, but The History of Roses, America's True Native Plant. Gay had such fascinating information on that one. It's great. If you haven't listened to those, go look them up at rosechatpodcast.com. Whew, well, that's all for now. And until next time, friends, I hope you find no critters and no crud in your garden.
You've been listening to the Rose Chat Podcast with Chris VanCleave and Teresa Byington, expert rose gardeners who want to help you achieve the rose garden of your dreams. Don't miss an episode. Listen anytime on our website at rosechatpodcast.com or listen on the go via the Rose Chat app on iTunes and Stitcher Radio. Share this podcast with your social networks and join us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram by using the hashtag RoseChat. Join us next time for another edition of the Rose Chat Podcast. The Rose Chat Podcast is a production of the Rose Chat Media Group, Birmingham, Alabama.